Good afternoon and welcome to today's edition of The Big Show. The Big Show, of course, is always here at Post-Gazette.com or Post-Gazette, whatever we call it. We always break down whatever the big news is during the day and throughout the weekend and throughout the week. It's Monday, so we're going to actually take a look forward at what happens this week, but also what has happened this past weekend. Clearly, the Steelers, with the winter meetings being in Florida, the Steelers have some news, I guess. I don't know if I'd call it news, but it's news. And, of course, the Pirates, well, they basically played some of the worst baseball you'll ever see over the course of the last 3 days. We might talk about that at the end, depending on whether or not I'm in the mood to talk about the Pirates. And generally, I'm not in the mood to talk about the Pirates when they play the way they played this weekend. So, to me, I think it's important to always to start with what is sort of what the news is of the day. I don't know if any of you saw Mike Tomlin's little press conference, but you can see it at Post-Gazette Sports, where he is being interviewed or being talked to by reporters down at the winter meetings. It's one of the few times in the offseason that you actually get to ask Mike Tomlin questions. And I will say this, and I mean this in all sincerity. I am more convinced now than I have ever been that Aaron Rodgers is going to be a Steeler. More convinced now than I have ever been that Aaron Rodgers is going to be a Steeler. Because I think if you look at what basically Mike Tomlin said and how he said it, it seems pretty clear to me that they're in pretty good shape and understand where they're at. And maybe, just maybe, all of these conspiracy theories about him wanting to have his announcement on the Pat McAfee show. I mean, I've heard all kinds of conspiracies about it. I'm not sure what's true and what's not, but it sounds like, he is basically talking about it as if he wants to do on, April 9th or 10th or someday. There's a Pat McAfee Live that's going to be here. I don't even know what the whole story is. I just know that there's been a theory out there that he wants to do it on the Pat McAfee show. Everything that I saw from Mike Tomlin today suggests to me, and again, I could be wrong. I've been wrong in the past, but it suggests to me that Mike Tomlin and the Steelers know exactly what Aaron Rodgers is doing. They're comfortable with it. They're comfortable with the fact that even if people are, trying to insinuate that he is sort of delaying or playing them, it seems pretty clear to me that they are basically in a good place and they know that they're probably going to get him. That's just me. He answered one of the questions as it was about a deadline and, whether or not he feels like they need a deadline and all this other stuff. And, he did the whole I really haven't thought about that or something, and then sort of winked at everybody. Okay. I mean, to me, I'll be honest with you. I feel like if you really look at that answer and the way that he talked, he basically made it pretty clear, you know what, we're really not all that, we're really not at a place where, we've got to worry about a deadline, not at a place where we've got to worry about, what he's going to do and everything else. I just tell you, it's going to be interesting to see if this is true, but it feels like there's no question. There's no question in my mind that Mike Tomlin and the Steelers think they're going to get Aaron Rodgers. And, Mike Tomlin talking about his relationship and the fact that, hey, he spent time with us the other day, all that other stuff. He was asked about a deadline, which, by the way, I've been saying for a long, long time. He's been, he basically said, we don't have a deadline for him. We don't feel particularly one way or the other about a deadline because, we've had an open communication with him. And so to me, I think if you watch it and you watch the way that he talked to reporters about things, I'll be honest. I don't think there's any question at all. Don't think there's any question that the Steelers think they're getting him, or they know that they're getting him, or that they feel like they have all the information they need to feel very comfortable that, hey, we're going to get this guy. He's going to be our guy. I really believe that. I just think it's always going to be interesting to see exactly how it happens. But be honest with you, I just feel like the answers today, the discussions from, Omar, Colin, and Mike Tomlin, it seems very, very clear to me that they think that there's, that they're going to get Aaron Rodgers, and they're not really that concerned about it. And the thing about it is, you know what? If he decides ultimately to retire, I guess that, that could happen still. It doesn't feel like that's going to happen. It seems to me like Aaron Rodgers has a date in mind or whatever where he wants to make his announcement or something. And given that, I think that's, one of those things where it's important now that he understands, hey, people are waiting for this. And, they want to know, what your answer is. But if the team that you're dealing with doesn't care, why should we? That's what I would tell you. Why should we? If the team that we're dealing with doesn't care, why should we care? And I guess that's, a very fair question. Because at the end of the day, it's always going to be the same in my mind. Fans and people of the media and everyone around have tried to make it far worse than it actually is. And so I just want to, say that I think that's always an important, distinction. The distinction is, it's just going to be a situation where I think the Steelers understand what's happening. Now, I thought there was some other interesting things. Mason Rudolph, the question was asked of Mike Tomlin about Mason Rudolph, and I thought he had some good answers. He basically said, hey, Mason Rudolph really, what? He's a guy that, we look at and say he's been a great teammate here. He's smiled in the face of adversity, I think is exactly what he said about the way that he came through. He said, basically that he's a great teammate. Here it is. Anytime you experience something with somebody, there's growth in that regard. Certainly the way that he smiled in the face of adversity and delivered for us was significant. Not that I was shocked by it or didn't think it was within the framework of his capabilities. We're excited about having him back. He's a really good teammate. He's a really good football guy. Yada, yada, yada. I think that's all great stuff. And so to me, I think it's really, pretty cool if you think about it, what they want to do. That's what I do think is really, really cool. And so, they know, they understand. They've got Mason Rudolph in, and if he has to be the starter, he has to be the starter. But even then, they're kind of, hedging their bets a little bit, it seems like. But there was a reason they signed Mason Rudolph, and it's because they feel comfortable with him. And I don't believe that they're lying there. But I also think it's kind of interesting to me that the way that Mike Tomlin spoke today and was very confident and didn't seem overly concerned or pressed about the whole Aaron Rodgers thing tells me that he's probably coming, and they know he's coming. And so that's that. That's really what it comes down to. The other thing I thought was interesting, is that he talked a little bit about, hey, we've been around looking at these younger quarterbacks too. And that is also something that is on the plate. We could do that. And then again, maybe we don't. I thought it was interesting, Omar Khan talking about the possibility of drafting a quarterback or having a quarterback in place. I thought it was interesting what he said too, because he basically said, you know what? There's two quarterbacks that are in the mix right now. Obviously, Skylar Thompson and Mason Rudolph. They're going to get two more, right? They're going to get two more because they're going to have four quarterbacks in camp. So that's a good place to start. They're going to have four quarterbacks in the camp. And also that fact that, hey, it's not easy to have a long-term quarterback in place. It's not ideal what we're doing. We addressed it. We're addressing it again. At some point, there has to be a long-term solution. I'll say that might happen this year. Maybe it's next. They know. They're just not really understanding. But I would just tell you, it's always going to be interesting now because they have to figure out the quarterback situation. And they have to figure it out long term. Another guy that was discussed, and I thought this was very interesting too, is Jaylen Warren. Both Mike Tomlin and Omar Khan basically said, you know what? Here's where we're at right now. Omar Khan said, I view him as a starter capable. He's played a lot of football for us, so obviously we have a lot of confidence. He has a big opportunity this year. We'll see how it goes. How about that? That tells me that they're probably, not really looking at bringing in another running back to compete, but basically they're going to get another depth guy. But the reality is maybe Jaylen Warren is going to be the guy this year. I don't know if I love that. I think he's a good player. I don't know if he's an every down back, but I guess we're going to find out by hook or by crook, right? We're going to find out. So I think that's the other interesting thing that they addressed. The one other thing that I thought was really, really nice, or not nice, but I mean, I think it was important, is the fact that the Steelers have a bunch of comp picks, right? So here's from the Post-Gazette article. Khan acknowledged compensatory picks the Steelers will receive for losing a host of free agents influenced their decision on some of those guys. There's always been a part of a process. I don't know exactly how it was going to shake out, but obviously when we look at who we're going to let go of or whatever, we're looking at comp picks. So the Steelers have lost, Wilson and Fields, Najee Harris, Dan Moore, Van Jefferson, Larry Ogunjobi, Landon Roberts, and Dante Jackson. The exact number of choices or position will be determined until after the 2025 season. But by the stature of players that they lost and the size of contracts some receive, the Steelers are in line to receive several third and fourth round selections. In other words, next year at this time, they'll have a lot of picks that they could put together if they need to, if they feel like they need to move way up in order to get a quarterback. They might be able to use that as a part of a package to move way up and move it to a place where, hey, you can get into the top 5 or top 8 and still have enough picks left to, do what you need to do in the draft. That's what those comp picks are probably going to help them do. So I would tell you that's really where it's at for the Steelers, is that in letting go all these free agents and everything else, if you look at where they're at, they're going to have an opportunity to go out and make some moves and make some moves in a way where they're able to, figure out, okay, hey, we need to go get draft choices, because at the end of the day, if we don't get draft choices, if we don't get draft picks, we won't be able to manipulate our way up in the draft the way we need to. If this season goes south or worse, this season's another 9-8 or 10-7, and we pick in the middle of the draft, the first round of the draft. That's where I would tell you, you look at it and you say, well, I think there's probably a problem. There's probably a problem if we don't have enough draft picks to be able to move up. And I think that's where that's where they're looking at for next year is we have a lot of picks, we can move up. One interesting conversation, somebody tried to, ask, someone actually did ask, but someone tried to get Mike Tomlin to talk a little bit about, basically, okay, if we do what we're supposed to do, what do you think is going to be the issue with respect to if a team has a better record than another team, but the team is a wild card team? Shouldn't they get a higher spot in the playoffs than the division team, even if the division team, even if the other team wins their division? And the answer is no. It's really no. No. I've said this many times, and I was glad that Mike Tomlin agrees with me. If you do that, what is the purpose of having a division? What is the purpose of winning the AFC North if it doesn't guarantee you a home game? It's got to mean something, period. And I think that's the thing that I like about Mike Tomlin is he basically said, no, I don't agree with that. I believe in divisions. I believe, that, the divisions are important. And I believe winning the division should matter. It should mean something. And there are some that would counter and say, well, I think that the idea is that you get the playoff, that's the reward. No, that's not the reward. That's part of the reward. Part of the reward is you get a home game. And you get a home game so that you're able to, have a little bit of a leg up when it comes to the playoffs because you've earned it. And that's what, Mike Tomlin said. I'm a division purist, I think is exactly what he said. I'm a division purist, he said, when asked about it. And he's right. The AFC North means something. The AFC North, and all the other divisions, it actually really matters if you win it now. Because if you win it, you've earned it. I've had this argument with many people many times. Okay? Many people, many times. And there's a lot of people that think it's not fair. Team 7 and 9, yada, yada, blah, blah, blah. No. Wrong. I don't believe that for a second. Don't believe that for a second. I think at the end of the day, it is really, really kind of interesting. To me, it's kind of interesting, but it's the truth. And the truth is, if you are in a division, winning it has to mean something. Something more than just making the playoffs. And if it doesn't, then get rid of divisions. I mean, I guess I could be, convinced. I guess I could be convinced of that. But winning it, to me, that's the reality of it. And so I think that honestly, Mike Tomlin is correct. You win your division, it should matter. If you don't win your division, you know what? And you get into the playoffs because you're a wild card. I'm just telling you, if it's me, I'm telling you this. I say, if you're a wild card team, you should go on the road for your first game. Period. And that's just where I'm at with it. And I think that, you know, that's something that, you know, Mike Tomlin said. So, wait, here we go. We have someone who's arguing with the strategy of waiting till next year. The problem with that, you know, there's only really two guys that people are convinced are good enough to be first-round picks, and both of them will be off the board in the top 5 picks. That's the problem, Mark. That's why you can't go this year and worry about trying to get a quarterback. It's just not feasible. Not really. Not at all. And so, to me, if you're going to get Jackson Dart, or now the new thing is Jalen Milroe again, I don't know if that excites me or not. I don't know if it's supposed to. Is it? How exciting are those two guys to you? Do you think either one of those guys is the answer here? I just don't. I don't feel like those two guys are the answer. I'm not excited at all about any of the quarterbacks right now that are around. So, you know, when we look at that from that perspective, it is important to note that when you are trying really hard to come up with a reason or whatever for why the Steelers are going to wait till next year, that's why. They're going to wait till next year because there's nobody here that they can get. Dart or Milroe, I guess if they want to take one of those guys, they can get one of those guys, but that doesn't excite me all that much either. It really does. I mean, if you want to say, well, we're going to draft a guy just to draft a guy, I guess you can get one of those guys, but it doesn't make sense to me. Now then, on to your Buccos. By the way, the game's always on at Archie's. Get down to Archie's on Carson. Archie's, home of 80-cent wings, Monday through Thursday. Home of the Paul Zeise grilled cheese sandwich. So get down to Archie's. Enjoy a good meal. Enjoy a lot of fun. And when you're down there, tell Archie I said hello. Okay. Now then. Pirates are 1-3. Who cares? You know, the record right now doesn't matter. It's so early, obviously, first 4 games. You know, it is what it is. But there are some larger issues that I would say we probably need to talk about a little bit from this team. First and foremost, I mean, we knew the offense was going to be bad, and it was bad. You know, there was a couple of big hits here and there, but for the most part, it was bad. Timely hitting was bad. Smart hitting was bad. Base running, bad. If you're going to be really average or below average hitting the ball, you better run the bases well. And the Pirates don't do that. You know, getting thrown out at home plate, not advancing from second to third, and it ended up costing a run. You know, getting caught stolen in a situation you shouldn't be stealing. You know, I mean, I could go on and on and on. These 4 games were basically a clinic in how not to play baseball. And the thing is, I think Derek Shelton is a great dude. He seems like a very nice guy. I have seen no evidence that this is a well-coached baseball team for 3 or 6 years or whatever it's been. Fundamentals are poor. Hitting fundamentals are poor. It's all poor, period. And I don't necessarily think that it's always going to be, you know, important to be perfect. But, you know, the Pirates didn't hit well, didn't hit timely, didn't run bases well, didn't field well. And the O'Neal Cruz experiment in center field, I know it's still early technically, but man, he looks like he's miles and miles away from being a player that you can actually count on to play center field the right way. He dropped a ball because he tried to do a basket catch, which should have been an out. Didn't actually, the Pirates somehow got out of that, but it should have been the end of the game. He threw twice to home when he should have thrown to second. That once allowed the tying run to score. Once allowed, I think, either the go-ahead run or whatever to score. They had errors from their catcher throwing down to second base. They just basically did not play baseball the way you need to play if you want to win. Then you've got the bullpen. And I understand David Bednar, renegade, all the other stuff, local guy, great dude, great story, great all of that stuff. I will never argue about any of that stuff. But at the end of the day, he has not been a closer for probably since halfway through last year. And you want to tell me you're going to keep running him out there? Keep running him out there in the 5th and 6th inning. But right now, I have no idea how you run him out there in the 9th inning in the highest leverage situations that you can, because he's proven recently, at least, he cannot get it done. Maybe he's injured. Maybe his arm is stale. I don't know what's going on. But you can't put him out there if he can't get outs, if he can't get out of innings. If you can't have clean innings, you can't put him out there. The same thing with Colin Holderman, who's been brutal. And the problem is, I look at the roster the Pirates have, and I'm telling you, I look at it and just basically say that it is so important for them to give up some of these guys who aren't ever going to be good and let their young guys bring them up. I don't want to hear about Super 2 and, arbitration, pre-arbitration, and all the other garbage. Do you want to be great at any point when Paul Skeens is still on your roster, or you don't? You got a kid like Cal Nicholas down in at AAA. He can't be worse than Colin Holderman. He can't be worse than David Bednar. Why not bring him up here and let him see what he can do and continue to try and, get better as he gets more experience in the major leagues? There can't be much more he needs to do down there. Bubba Chandler, same thing. Nick York, same thing. There's all these guys they've got who probably should be on the major league roster, because you've got guys like G1 Bay who stink. The Pirates might be the only team in America that really believes, or only the front office and Shelton may be the only people in America that believe G1 Bay should be a major league player and play, not just that, but play almost every day. What are we doing? He's fast. Go get Carl Lewis. My God. I just look at this team, this roster, and everything else, and the way they played this weekend, and I just say, this is embarrassing. It's as bad as it gets. It really is. And it might not get any better, because, again, they're not playing their young guys enough. And that's where I have a problem with what they're doing. I just do. What they did this weekend was an absolute embarrassment. Not because they lost to a bad team, but because bottom line is they played horrible baseball. If you're going to play horrible baseball, it's going to be really hard to convince fans that they want to come watch you play. But part of it is, I think they're just not doing enough. And they're not doing enough to basically get the people they need to get into the games. And so there's that. By the way, further fueling the conspiracy theories out there, I would say, I guess, if you want to say that, is basically the fact that you had DK Metcalf and Aaron Rodgers playing catch at UCLA today. Obviously, that means something. I just don't know what it means, to be honest. And so, to me, we got to just figure out all of these little pieces of evidence. It seems to me like it's pretty clear that he is going to be a Steeler. At any rate, hopefully you have a good day. We'll do it again tomorrow. We'll have fun, I'm sure, tomorrow. Enjoy your night.
Thank you for checking out this content from Post-Gazette Sports. If you watch this video on YouTube, please like the video and subscribe to our channel. For all of the sports coverage the Post-Gazette has to offer, visit post-gazette.com.